Like anything else in life, if you feel uncomfortable in the situation, it's a good thing for growth
Wow.
and to get through it. So I think to really grow at various levels, you have to be uncomfortable to do that and to be able to conquer it and just get out and do it.
That's a powerful thought. Was that something that you picked up over the years, or was that something that as soon as you came out of the womb, you're 10 months old, you were like, yeah,
Um,
this is
no,
uncomfortable.
I think it's something that as you get more involved with business and life and experiences, um, you learn that in order to really grow and achieve the goals you want to set, you're going to become uncomfortable in some of the things, tasks you have to do, or things you have to get involved with. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a really powerful mindset. And now I'm excited that we are having this conversation,
Well, I am
Gary.
too, and thank you for the opportunity.
Heck yeah.
It's great.
A big reason is win-win or no deal, integrity, do the right thing, customers always come first, commitment, all things like the core values of Keller Williams and what the company stands for has always been intriguing to me. And in 1987, you started a real estate business leaving Drexel, correct?
I got in the real estate business in 1987. Yeah. Prior to that, I was involved with a family business, helping them out, and then I had various relatives involved in real estate.
Yeah.
So at the family dinners at our house, the conversation was always real estate, and I'm sitting there not in the industry, having a conversation about properties and houses, and quite frankly, being able to compete with top producers who were in the business and the knowledge about the houses in the area, because it was just something I always enjoyed. But my introduction to real estate came from a real estate law course at Drexel.
Wow. So, and you studied marketing,
Marketing and business.
and now, so you were at Drexel, you were having these real estate conversations around that time. You were interested in real estate. And was Keller Williams the first company that you ended up working with?
No, I went out and there was a company at that time called Roach Brothers.
Okay.
And they were kind of a mainline company coming out to the western frontier of Westchester at the time, and expanding. And so, despite the fact that my relatives were with a different company, I went with them because I kind of wanted to do my own thing under my own name. And so they were coming out, trying to get offices going out in western Chester County. So I joined them and started with them and started building my team and my group and my real estate business from that.
Was that the first 6 months, the first year? How long?
That lasted 27 years.
Really? Okay, so you were, okay, that's my mistake. I was looking at your LinkedIn. I was like, oh, it's been with Keller Williams this long. So for 27 years, you were with private.
It was Roach Brothers, Fox and Roach, Roach Wheeler, Prudential, Fox and Roach, and now Berkshire Hathaway.
And they were recently acquired.
They were acquired through Berkshire Hathaway.
So when did you come over to Keller Williams?
I'll be starting my 4th year in January.
Understood. Now I look at it in general, and you can correct me if, actually I'd love your opinion on this. People talk about competition.
Right.
How can there be if there's enough planets out there that we could go for millions and millions there? We don't know.
Right.
So I look at it as like a mindset at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
And that we're going to be attracted to people that believe what we believe in. We don't need to maybe believe what this guy believes. We can be okay with that. Like, we're just going to be moving around here. Like, it's all good. So what drew you to Keller Williams?
That's a great question, and thank you for asking that. I like to study business, and I started reading Gary's books. And so from reading those books, that philosophy of what he was saying in the Millionaire Real Estate Agent.
Powerful book.
Very good book, very detailed on what an agent really needs to do. Started to resonate with me, so I started reading all of his books. Oddly enough, I was in a lot of national mastermind groups across the US and Canada, and a lot of those people were leaving their companies to go to Keller Williams.
Wow.
And I thought, wow, these are some really smart top people in the field producing at a very high level, probably top 1%. And, so there was an additional validation of it, because when they first started here, Keller Williams wasn't known, obviously, in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And it took a while, really, to gain traction. But the concept is obviously very successful. I'm fortunate enough to be in Gary's top 100 mastermind now.
There you go.
And just being around that, hearing, the ideas and concepts and the support that he has for the agents out there, and the fact that he set a system of education, systems and models, put that in place for agents to succeed. If you come in, plug in, and do those activities, you will succeed.
And it's interesting, I hear that a lot, if you come in and plug in,
Mm-hmm.
you've got to show up and put the work in.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no free ride with anything, and it's a matter of doing the work, doing the activities. It breaks down as simple as this. If you're, following a schedule, if you're disciplined, if you're doing the activities, you will get the results. The question ultimately, and it works if you work, the question is, do you?
Yeah,
work?
do you?
Yeah, I mean, and I don't mean that in a flippant manner. I mean, it's proven. It's not recreating the wheel. It's there. If you are consistently doing those activities, you follow a schedule.
Yeah.
You create a good set of habits. You increase your skill set and your language of sales and all the things to be a professional. You'll succeed at a high level.
I need to make sure everything's on, because this is like gold right now. So,
That's true.
I was on a podcast recently, and they pressed a button of a bomb every time a big word came out. So I just gotta flip it.
Yeah,
I like that.
Right?
I don't hear that word a lot. Like bomb.
There you
It's
go.
interesting because I'm curious now. You've been in the business actually
Of
longer
course,
than
I started when I was 5.
Yeah,
So put
that's
that
what
in
I'm.
perspective.
Yeah, well, that's that one. You're good. You're good. You saw that coming, right? How long did it take you to, if it did take time at all, to kind of turn that serious mode on and show up ready to work? Because that can be tough for people. I don't know.
Well, it is very tough for
I hid in the
people.
bathroom for the first 2 months. I was hiding in the bathroom, not.
Well, I think
making the calls.
Yeah, I think people are scared. They need to confront the fears or the objection or resistance that they have to doing the activities. I think I had a real advantage over that. Part of the reason is the work ethic of my parents was such that my father owned his own business. So if he wasn't in there producing, creating the product, you didn't earn any money and the people didn't get paid.
Yeah.
So growing up, I saw a pattern, a habitual pattern that becomes a routine of, okay, up and out this time every day. This is the schedule, and it's 6 or 7 days a week. It is what it is. I own my own business. He owns his own business,
and you grew up.
so
seeing
he
this.
had to do what he had to do, and even to the degree if employees didn't show up, I mean the buck stopped there, and he had to do what he had to do to cover all of that. And knowing that, so there was a mindset of, for me, is I'm working. That's the end of it. I'm going to be in there regardless of anything. Even when and look, hey, all of us. Right, there are some days you want to hit that snooze alarm a little bit more and a little bit more, right? I mean,
I actually slept in my suit last night.
There you
because
go,
I knew
man.
I wouldn't get here. I was 4 minutes late. No. Isaiah wanted a coffee at Wawa. I go, no, we're gonna be late. I got a Red Bull, a coffee, and 5 Hour Energy. Just boom,
There
boom,
you
boom,
go.
boom.
You're ready to go. Right?
Yeah.
Awesome. But so I mean, that's human nature. But having the dedication and the discipline to show up on time, do the activities, the things you need to do, which in our business, one of the most important things is prospecting.
Yeah.
And
for people that don't know, that's talking to other humans.
well, you know what? That's actually what it is. You need human-to-human contact and conversation, and then that leads to a little bit more of a relationship. It leads to the trust factor, because really what we are is a trusted advisor.
Yeah.
For people, because it's one of their biggest investments.
Purchasing a home or selling a home.
Absolutely. So I mean, that's a huge responsibility, and I always felt that that if you're given that opportunity, that you need to be a first-class professional at all levels.
How do you prepare your mind and I guess some of the activities, whether it's before you go on a listing presentation or whether it's right after that you take on a new client? What are some of the things that you do?
Well, everything that we do is systemized.
Okay.
And for me, it's a process that I follow every time in every procedure. So
Wow.
we have the checklist basically to follow that. I mean, I've been able to grow the business. I was probably one of the first ones in our area to start the team concept.
Really? Congratulations. That's a beautiful
And
concept, actually.
It is. And, it just goes back to basic business. And what I mean by that is, at a certain level, an individual agent is going to get to a point where if they look at the business portion of it,
Okay.
what's the highest and best use of your time and efficiencies? So Gary Keller introduces and has introduced the concept of leverage. And really that's what I was doing very early on. And it started, look, we climbed every step of the stairs. And what I mean by that is I started out and got to a certain level where, a general number they throw out there is, if you're doing 40, 45 deals yourself, you should have an assistant helping you. Well, if you're doing that yourself and totally yourself, you're doing everything. Signs, lock boxes, everything. And I'm there like, well, when you start doing the math on the income coming in and the hours, it's like you can determine that your time, which is, we all have 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
Your time is critical. And so you're able to put a dollar amount to your time. So, and this is just business 101.
This is amazing.
You put the dollar amount to your time and say, well, wait a minute.
We'll be selling this for $57.99. No,
exactly. No, it's always good to do 29 or $19.99. And as a special bonus, we'll offer.
You can hang out with us him. I'll just be there on the wall filming. Wow. So you
do that. You do the math. You look at your time and say, hey, wait a minute. I don't need to be doing X, Y, and Z. I've got a good person that can do that, and they're happy at a certain dollar amount. I'm better off paying them that a dollar amount, so I can go do things that make me more efficient.
Did you figure that out kind of unconsciously in the beginning? Like, it was almost like intuitive for you, like common sense?
Yeah, it was. It was just common sense.
Would you say, and I don't know if you've
I don't know that everybody thinks about it that way.
But was it growing up, do you think? Has seen your father?
Well, yes, I would say that.
Because not everyone does think of it like that way intuitively.
Right. Well, I think because you're running a business, you have employees, you have to start thinking about things like that to run your business.
How many years in business?
Well, and here's the difference.
Yeah, go ahead.
Here's a big difference. I went in, and my background was business. I went into this business looking at it and treating it as a business.
Wow, yeah, and that's thing.
A lot of people. Look, a lot of people don't. Because they see all the, I guess, social aspect of the business.
Distractions,
and the distractions. That's probably, for anybody getting into the business new, I would say your biggest challenge getting into the business new is filtering out all the distractions and really determining what's important. And so back to business 101, the bottom line is, my mindset when I first started is, I hit the floor in the morning, and my mindset is I'm unemployed today because I'm pure commission unless I make something happen.
Wow. Okay.
And for years, that's been my mindset on it. And so
was that from day one?
From day one. So I knew I could be going in 40, 60 hours a week, and if I wasn't efficient on my time, if I wasn't doing the things that led to listing a property or finding a buyer to buy a property, in essence, I was out of business.
Interesting. Now,
and so if you keep that mindset, now all of a sudden your priorities shift around, and you're thinking about it at a professional level. Now, with that, I started getting in. I was doing some other things, such as for years I chaired the Realtor Lawyer Committee, tying back in my real estate initial information that got me interested. Went on the board of directors for the local association at that time.
So you offered a lot of your time.
I was giving back from that standpoint. And
where did
also
that mentality come from?
I think it's always important to try to give back and to help others on there, and I think that's part of the open culture of KW of sharing and giving.
And culture matters.
Giving back. And well, culture does matter, doesn't it? Yes, indeed.
Now, I'm extremely curious about your collegiate experience, so I don't know if you know this, but we actually do philanthropically invest our time speaking at schools.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's one of the reasons you started the company in the first place, because you're saying something I don't get to hear a lot. It's amazing to me. Number one, you looked at your business, or you looked at real estate as a business. That's
Absolutely.
profound. You also, when you were in school, you studied business and marketing, which
Correct.
could then cross-pollinate to real estate.
Absolutely.
What was it? How did you view your studies? Like, did you take it seriously? Were you like, because the average student in college is studying 2 hours a week or something insignificant to the amount of time they invest in college, and maybe doesn't have that mentorship or that professor inspiring them to pay attention. Like, would you say you were driven in school, very focused?
No doubt about it.
And then how did that translate, to success?
Well, I think it was a focused determination. It was drilled into me by my parents. Wow. That you got to get a college education. You need to go to college. That was always reinforced. And when I got there, I looked at it and said, "Wow." And even those days, it cost a lot of money.
Yeah, of course. In comparison, yeah.
And I saw how my parents struggled with, tuition and making it all happen. So at Drexel, they had something, a co-op program, a work-study program, and I did that because I saw what it took, and so I partially paid my way by working in the work-study program. And I had I worked for one company the whole time, which is very unique. They kept having me back, and I had great high-level marketing, corporate experience.
So
with
as
senior
you were in
vice
college,
presidents at this company and regional marketing managers. So I was at a very young age. I was exposed to business operations, a variety of projects and things that I got the opportunity to work on, and that was beneficial. And at the same time, earning money for the
So
homeless.
while you were in college, you were also working at it's like a paid internship.
Well, you would be out in industry for 6 months and then in school for 6 months. That's how it worked.
So you weren't flying around the world with Instagram?
No,
okay.
Not at all.
So you'd be an Instagram realtor?
Yeah, absolutely. It'd be a little different maybe today, but that's
so the whole year you were working.
It comes back to one thing.
Wow.
It's like, yeah. So yes, I was either in school working or I was earning money to help pay for school.
And you did that for 4 years?
It was a 5-year program, but I graduated 6 months ahead of my class. I was done my credits because I was doubling up on credits because, again, if I could save my parents thousands of dollars and save myself extra work doing that, I would do that. So I guess I would say I was, even at an early age, somewhat industrious.
Where does that drive come from that you believe?
Um, I always thought I'd be successful, and I wanted to achieve a lot of things, and I think it just comes from my competitive nature, the desire to do a good job and enjoy what I'm doing. I mean, honestly, we're helping a lot of people. Prior
Yeah,
to
you helped over 200 people last year, at least.
Yeah, we've done
With
over,
their
I
lives
think,
significantly.
the
Even
team
about
together,
people.
we've probably serviced close to, if not more than 5,000 people.
Wow.
And so that in its own right, yes, we're being paid for those services, but in a way, we're really helping people. We're fulfilling the American dream of home ownership.
Yeah.
At least it was an American dream at one time. I'm not so sure
Yeah,
it's
well,
the same
well,
right now,
hey.
but
It's intriguing. And so, what I, getting to know you, listening to your life story and how you translate that to success in real estate, I keep hearing things that make me think of like curiosity, education, personal development. You're a reader. I mean, your vernacular is reflection of that.
yeah.
We
well,
talked a little bit before we turned this on about
you're-
books.
Yeah.
What is your ethos on reading, learning, growing?
I think it's critical. I have it's a simple philosophy. You're either green and growing, or you're red, ripe, and dying.
Wow.
And I prefer the green and growing side of things.
Like bamboo, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Or a great oak, maybe.
So,
that's even better.
well, here's the thing. The more you can of good material you can put in your mind.
Yeah.
And you keep putting good thoughts in your mind, creative thoughts. I had a mentor that always said, think big, and plan for that, and keep putting all these good thoughts into your mind. And he introduced me to a lot of people, a lot of thoughts and concepts that where they're like, wow, yeah, let me think about that, and let's.
What are some of the
let's
most
do it.
intriguing, I guess, empowering concepts you've ever been introduced to, whether it was by him or?
Well, through reading those books, through masterminding with other top people, you just get various opinions and ideas to implement. And so, a very simple thought on that is, being introduced to people who do a lot more than you at every level. The more you see that, the more it's like, okay, let me learn about that. Let me be able to do that. So I think that introduction has led me individually to know multimillionaires, and now to actually know and interact with some billionaires.
Wow.
And so that's a whole different mindset and approach. Whereas if you kind of stay in your little box, you may not ever experience any of that. And it's kind of fun to experience it because people view things differently.
Yeah.
But yet we all have 24 hours a day to achieve things.
It's interesting you talked about opening yourself up to people that are operating at a level that may be unimaginable to you before doing so, like meeting millionaires. And then when you get to that level, it's like, well, then there's billionaires. Do you feel like the more successful the social perception becomes, the easier it is for you to stay in your box? I mean, the more people that
you can
look up to you, the easier it is to stay in that box.
Yes, I think so. But then that in its own right is stifling in growth. And so again,
you don't
if you're not uncomfortable,
right,
you're not growing. So it's important as challenging as it can be, it's important to put yourself in uncomfortable positions, because if you're taking those challenges on and doing them, you're growing.
Yeah.
And you're learning. And wow, isn't that what life's all about? I mean, seriously, it doesn't make things more exciting.
Well, it's obvious that we're going to be friends. I
believe it does, and
wow,
because of that,
yeah,
and that exposure and learning, to have the ability to deal with a variety of people in a variety of situations, through their personality profiles and how
Yeah.
to relate to them. It just makes you easier to talk to, and more approachable for more people.
It's interesting because I've come to find, and especially over the years of coaching on an extremely high level, men predominantly, something occurs, usually not inspiring, but traumatic, or for that mindset that you just demonstrated to start happening. However, listening to you, it sounds like that's the mindset you've consistently had since you started, even in school. Would you say that, or was there ever a time?
I would say,
and that's rare.
I keep score because and I say keeping score, it's a way to track, are you on target with what you're doing? And so from that standpoint, I consider myself a competitive person. And so, let me give you an example of that all the way through. So when I was with my former company, we were, it's a great company. I was with them for a lot of years, and good people, local, but they were a local company, and they were a powerhouse. They were number one, and so, I got involved with them. And then I would go to their award ceremonies, and my first couple of years, I wouldn't be up on the stage, but the top producers, maybe top 10, would be. So then I remember it to this day, because at the time it was at what used to be the Valley Forge Music Fair, and I saw these rock stars getting acknowledgement up on the stage, and we were a sizable company but local. And I thought to myself, okay, I want to achieve that. I want to be up on the stage and one of their top people. So that was goal number one. And so then I was able to achieve that. And then the company was bought out by a bigger company, and we were at a national convention, my first one. And all of a sudden, I saw more national people, and thought I was doing pretty well locally. But compared to that, it's like, wow, small pond. And so, I remember saying to the CEO at the time, 1 or 2 years, I'm going to be on that stage. And then I was able to achieve that goal. And then, and I was a top producer for them, and did, it was all good. I was being mentored and coached by people. I've always had coaches. So that was good. That helped stimulate me and keep me going. And then some opportunities opened up with KW. That was a transition that we could make, more opportunity, and competing at another level. And so, I've transitioned to that. And so now
feel like you could bust through. It's almost as if, I love it because psychologically, life, and what I look at is, in a sense, our ability to deconstruct ourselves and reconstruct ourselves every day.
Yeah,
I
think that's very important.
Pattern.
Yeah.
It's really about your journey, deconstructing yourself and reconstructing yourself. And that's developing the people around you, your cultural alignment.
Yeah.
And you saw that in this company, that it's going to help. It's really going to help you grow to another level, is what it seems like.
Right. And a top executive of a real estate company sent me this card, which I've kept. And it said, shoot for the stars. Even if you miss, you've achieved good things. But more importantly, in the card he said, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey to the destination. And
you feel like that just resonates with who you are?
Absolutely. It's always about that. And it opens up other doors, other potential challenges. So why not go for it? You
mentioned a book earlier before we turned the camera on, Think and Grow Rich.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've heard like 8 of the principles already in this conversation, like definiteness of purpose, mastermind alliance, applied faith, going the extra mile. is that a book that you would say has been impactful to your life, or if not that book, which books?
Oh,
For people, they need to be
absolutely.
buying Amazon books right now because
Oh, yeah.
this is gold.
Well, here's what I do. I mean, I went to, well, the mentors and people that I associate with always have reading lists and book lists, and mastermind groups would challenge each other for growth and for discussion purposes, books to read. And yeah, hey, it's so easy today. You have Audible, you have, well, you can get, you can listen to them,
Everywhere.
you can read them.
YouTube.
YouTube, exactly. It's all over, and it's easy to access. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's critical if you want to keep
So is
growing.
that part of
So,
your daily ritual?
you
Yeah, I'm
know,
so curious.
all of them. Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
If you
it's
could
part of
take an
my-
IV drip of audiobooks, I'm just kidding.
I would. If I
personal
could do
development,
it, it's
yes.
like, implant it here and have the little recording going
Well, I
in
got
all
a
day
book for
long.
you about that. You ever heard of Ray Kurzweil? He
No.
works at Google.
No.
He's been 86% of the time since last 30 years
Mm-hmm.
right predicting the future.
Wow.
Yeah, you ever heard of the X Prize? Peter Diamandis
Okay.
is business partners with Ray Kurzweil. Ray
Right.
Kurzweil invented the machine in the 70s that could help blind people read. Like, he's an inventor.
Sure.
And he has a book. I'm going to
Wow,
give you
I
that.
love
It's
that.
called The Singularity, and it's about that, what you just said.
Yeah.
2029.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
stop and think about it. Even some of the people in my mastermind group, for thought purposes and to keep good things going into your mind, because I mean, there's a lot of negative news and stuff that
so much,
you can't
yeah.
get away from it. But they would put headsets on at night and listen to tapes, or I'm dating myself with tapes, but CDs, or anything like that. So I think as much as you can expose yourself to it, the more beneficial it is. And it's interesting because after a while you get to the point where you read what somebody said, and then you paraphrase it and you go back, then you're having a conversation about it, then you're talking about it, and then after a while it's like, oh, whose idea was that after all?
Well, Leonardo da Vinci said, good artists copy, great artists steal.
Absolutely.
So you're a great artist.
Yeah,
At this
exactly.
point, that's where you're stealing everybody.
It's funny. Well,
Yeah.
you take those, hey, I don't want to reinvent the wheel, and there were a lot of people before me and a lot of good ideas. But the key to it is being receptive and open to being exposed to the material, and then applying all the material. I mean, it's not rocket science to be successful.
Definitely not rocket science.
It's
And
not.
if only the rocket science could bridge, I think we would be better at business.
There are just principles
Yeah.
that you should apply and follow. The question is, are you
Interestingly
really doing
enough, Elon Musk says part of how he was able to do, Tesla and all this
Mhm.
is because he looks at it as from an engineer standpoint.
Right.
Yeah, reverse engineers the
Reverse
problem.
engineer the problem.
Just how Gary put together that dang book so articulately.
Absolutely, and each of his books are meaningful and they're really good.
What would you say is your
It was
top
a blueprint
three?
for success in real estate.
Which
quite
one?
frankly.
Which one?
Starting with the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. It really was.
If
It
you
was
have that and then one thing, it's like
and the one thing, and if you focus on that, and the one thing is very important and appropriate, just per our conversation already, because there are so many things coming at you. You can be distracted with the inertia of all the other activities.
inertia. I'm pressing the bob.
Yeah,
That's
I mean.
that's inertia. That's a Richard Feynman word. Yes.
But it's true,
readers.
man. And so even today, I mean, even with what we do and what I do, I have to constantly, keep that in mind, because it's
Do you see
easy to
that a
have
lot?
creative avoidance.
Ooh, okay. So creative avoidance. How would you define that? Because like my mind's exploding now.
Creative avoidance is doing the little things that distract you and take you away from the one thing or the purpose of what you need to achieve that day. Maybe because it's easier or whatever, or because you don't want to jump in and do the activity. So it's like, let me get a cup of coffee. Let me stop here. Oh, there's John over there. Let me go have a conversation.
Would you
with
say it's
him.
worse now?
And then
'cause
all of a
there's so
sudden
much
you've
stimulus?
lost a whole morning, and so you can't get those hours back. So it's, yeah, I use the word, I've used the word focus a lot because you have to stay focused on the moment and what you're doing.
Would you say like what worked 30 years ago in real estate to be successful still works? Just there's a lot of can be a lot of distractions, or because that can be a very confusing scenario. There are ways to build a business that are different than 20 years ago. However,
Right.
what worked 20 years ago does work. It's just, are you going to have creative avoidance or not?
Yeah,
Are
I
you going
think
to focus?
that's a factor, as well as there are disruptors that are constantly coming into the to the business or into a market segment and disrupting the
What are
market.
some of the big disruptors I mean, you've been in the business long enough to be able to say, hey, this is how it was, this is where it's going. Like, what are your
Well,
thoughts?
I think there are a variety of changes. I mean, look back on the business years and years ago. There were, for lack of a better term, the mom and pop shops, small local guys that went into more regional guys that went into the Remaxes and the Keller Williams and the growth pattern there. There are constantly other new models being developed that come in. But to answer your question directly, I think that yes, there are some fundamental business practices that applied 20 and 30 years ago. I hesitated on the number of years that applied.
You started at 5.
Yeah, exactly.
You were like
that
very
applied
young.
back then.
You were very
that
young.
are still applicable today.
Okay.
But I also feel that with the advent of society changing, technology changing, how we do business, how consumers find product today, housing, the exposure through the internet, it's a whole different game. In the past, for example, the realtor was, quote, the keeper of the gate.
Yeah.
Because you didn't get that information unless you went through a real estate company or a realtor. And today it's out there on the internet. So that dynamic has changed and shifted. And I feel that, well, look, if we take any company and we study companies, there are a lot of companies that were there 30 years ago that aren't there today.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's a matter of what Wayne Gretzky said, skating ahead of the puck as to where it's going. And I think to be successful in business, that needs to happen.
Have the vision of the future. Well, Gary Keller had a vision.
Well, to his credit, his model took it to, we won the trifecta. Number 1 in agent count, number 1 in volume, and number 1 in units. In a relatively short period of time.
Well, yeah, the company started 10 years after Remax and now has 80% more agents than that company.
Right.
And I would argue it's because he was the first to market in the sense of creating an information age real estate company that developed people.
Right.
Developed people.
That's exactly right.
And enabled them to grow through the hierarchy of like interdependence and love and belonging and actualize and own something.
Absolutely.
And he was a visionary.
And he saw that.
And he still is a visionary.
Absolutely,
without a doubt.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And he's constantly reinventing the company. And that's,
and by the way, I don't know
critical.
if you know this stat, but in the last 50 years, the half-lives of companies, Fortune 500, went from 77 years to 25 years.
I believe that, yes.
So it's
I didn't know the exact numbers.
It's
but
300% quicker they go out of business.
Yes.
Because of that crazy.
Well, you have to stay ahead of that, and you have to be willing to make that change and accept that change. And isn't that part of the whole growth journey anyway?
It's interesting because the more, like Napoleon Hill, right? He set out to interview individuals of success to figure out what their qualities were. What are the consistent denominators?
Well, success leaves clues. Wouldn't you
agree?
agree?
Heck yeah. And I say one of the big clues of humans that are just successful in their lives is curiosity and observation. And you, sir, are a very curious and observant human. And so is Gary Keller. And a lot of the individuals that I meet that inspire me, they're curious, observant. By the way, Leonardo da Vinci was curious and observant.
Yes. Curious
and observant people. And it's just very interesting, everything that you're saying, because that is what rises above at the end of the day. Would you agree? What are your thoughts on that?
I think so. I think when you lose the being curious, then you're losing the desire to grow. and to learn. And I think that's part of this journey, to learn and grow as much as we can and continue to, hey, all the top people, they're constantly reinventing themselves. So I think that's a natural evolution. I mean, look at me. I reinvented myself. When I started in real estate, I had hair. Look at me now.
I know. That's awesome. Yeah, no, I love it. The pleasing personality. There you go. I'm thinking of Think and Grow Rich the whole time. I studied that book a lot.
It's a great book. I have it. I want to wear the pages out. I continue to go back to that, and a number of other books with, successful people. I like reading about successful people, their journey, and what they've done. And part of that was getting turned on to that whole concept through, good mentors and people that I've had in my life.
So now I'm thinking, like mentors, personal development, you had a certain level of respect, obviously, for your father and growing up and seeing him work as hard as he did, and that translated to you.
He was part of that, what Bro called the greatest generation. I mean, my uncles and father, all those guys were in the service, World War II, and all of that. Seeing them come out and achieve what they achieved was, and their work ethic, and it was it was a basis for learning and for understanding life a little bit.
I studied a lot of leadership, having been not one at all, to develop myself on a higher level every day, and a part of that is we need to see, seeing something is believing until believing is seeing, and the individual that maybe doesn't know what you know, that is could be a child, it could be a friend, it could be an employee, they got to see it. It's like you saw that greatest generation, and that translated to you in some capacity.
Sure.
When I was looking at your website, I saw it looks like a family. There's a family cohesion here at some point in your team. Your son.
Well, there is. I'm really blessed that way. Yes.
Would you say that's because you've been? I mean, I would psychologically, I'd say because you what is it? You sip your Kool-Aid. You're a grower. You're a thinker. You're a doer. It's like, is that a family business, a family approach? Like,
yes, very much.
Has that happened organically? And it's some and yes and no
I think the basis of it starts organically with a mindset and approach to it, and because you'll hear people say, I could never work with family, this or that, and that, but that's a mindset.
I would just say, I'm going to say, don't say this. They just need a therapist for their family.
Yeah.
So you're going to say that. They probably don't sit at dinner and talk.
I'm really.
You didn't say that. I said that.
I'm really blessed that way. I have everybody's involved in my family. My son, my daughter. I think my granddaughter, through osmosis of hearing us on the phone and doing business when we're away from business, but it's 24 hours business. I think the children and the grandchildren learn just by being around it. And let me give you an example of that, which is kind of interesting. And I think it plays through from my family as well. My wife's family, they were all in real estate. So my son and daughter, who were with me, and my wife is with my team as well, they always heard their grandmother talk real estate, the aunts, the uncles. Another uncle was in the mortgage business. It was always around the family dinner tables, which we always had the big family dinners at our house. So they always heard and picked up on this, the conversations, the negotiations, everything about that. In the car, I mean, I would always listen to CDs or whatever about real estate and positive people and things of that, Think and Grow Rich, anything like that. Jack Canfield's stuff, Norman Vincent Peale's.
Oh, it's great.
All of that.
Jim Rohn.
I had Jim Rohn, all of that.
Hundreds of these.
So they would constantly hear it. So it's kind of interesting because my son and daughter got into it, having kind of seen that environment from the family and from their grandparents. My granddaughter and grandson are starting to hear that because of the work that happens around them all the time. It'll be interesting to watch their career paths, how they grow and develop. It's kind of like a baseball player, a Major League Baseball player or Major League Football player. Have you ever noticed how many of their sons or daughters exceed at a high level in a similar or the same sport?
Yep.
Now, why do you think that is, as opposed to a person that never had that exposure? It's a whole different environment.
The word's inculcated.
Most definitely.
That's so now.
And you see that. So it'll be an interesting social experiment to see if that would be the 1, 2, 3. That would be the fourth generation, if that's inherent to them.
Well, so now we're getting to where my expertise lies, which is cultural alignment and development. And the example would be the Vanderbilts versus the Rothschilds.
Right.
Cornelius was an industrialist,
Mm-hmm.
was very aligned with your ethos and your habituation. However, he was not necessarily aligned with his second son, who survived the war.
Mm-hmm.
And because he wanted his name to be passed down, he left all of his wealth, basically other than 3%, so 97% of his wealth, to his second son.
Okay.
Who they weren't really that vibed with each
Right.
other. And that created a feud in house.
Mm-hmm.
And then for every generation after that,
Started
cognitive dissonance created.
Yep.
The Vanderbilts Wealth has gone down 57,000 times from
Yes.
what it was.
Right.
And now, so that family, the great granddaughter Eliza, she's still alive, I believe. She's like the mom of that guy on TV, the news guy, Anderson Cooper.
Anderson Cooper.
So his mother,
Okay.
she's worth about 200 million. He had 100 million in 1860.
Wow.
It was equivalent to
Yeah. It's
he was wealthier in relation to the GDP than Rockefeller, actually.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
So just look at that culture,
Right.
misalignment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, guys. I like Vanderbilts are great, but
Yeah.
that's what happens. And then, so your family has already crapped on him. That's what I'm trying to say. Like,
Yeah,
so
they're
I'm
following the
serious.
culture.
Forget the wealth. It's about
Forget the
being
wealth
aligned.
part of
Yeah,
it, but it's
you've
the-
already crapped on that. And I'm going to tell
Yeah.
you this: it's all psychology and the understanding of the neurology of the mind and how it aligns with the psychology. The Rothschilds had a very similar outcome as what you're showing. Is that Amschel had 5 sons, and they all went across the world, banking here, banking there, and to this day, that family. Yeah, so I'm going to take that you could bet me on this 10 years that they'll be in real estate.
It'll be interesting.
They'll be in real estate.
Yeah,
We
it'll
can
be
check on it.
interesting.
If they're
Yeah,
not, I
okay.
owe you dinner.
There we go. All right.
So I'm curious to what because this is a cult. This is amazing
Well,
culture. What's your
tying
vision
that
for
back,
Yeah.
the culture matters. That's kind of the whole point of that conversation, because that is a cultural experience
Yeah.
for the people in the family. It's kind of a cultural experience with the mindset of philosophy, with what KW is. It's kind of a cultural experience with a mindset of being open, learning, growing. And I take some of those techniques and things, and subconsciously I try to embed that in the grandkids' thought processes, so that it helps them to achieve things, and just employ some of those concepts with them to see if it helps them in their growth and development as
Have you
individuals.
written a book?
It's something that I have in the back burner.
How about how to be a grandfather?
Actually, have I? Good point.
I'm sorry.
Have we written a book? Yes. My wife and I were published under a pseudonym very early in our careers. It was, I believe, it was classified as a bestseller through the pseudonym. We didn't get direct. We did get direct exposure on it because it was in the papers. It was on some of the news and TV. And we were in the paper on it. Joanne, my wife, did write another small book on around carb light living and dieting with a lower carb process for losing weight. So yes, we have done some things in that regard. I've always thought that it would be interesting to do that and contribute back somehow through a book or something. So it's kind of,
I can feel one.
yeah, it's
Readers
kind of,
become
it's kind of back
writers.
there, you know.
Oh, maybe this was it. The
So
moment
maybe,
you're like, this
maybe.
guy's telling me to write a book.
We'll see. Yeah.
What's now that you've been at Keller for 4 years? You're in the business a lot since you were 5. Spent some time help over five,
Yeah,
over
actually, I'm
5,000
in
people.
30 years now.
Yeah, 30 years in the business, so help thousands of people, and you have this growing team, and you have the transaction coordinator, the listing agent, like social media, you got
Yeah,
all the aspects.
Mm-hmm.
And you're in this beautiful market center. What is the future then? The next couple of years, what's your plan? Like the vision? What are you doing?
Well, I think putting the steps in place for transition plan for my family on there, where I will maybe not be at the level of production that I'm at right now, and delegate and leverage more of that so that I can seek new and other opportunities, many of which are within the KW organization.
Wow.
And
Exciting.
continue to give that back and free up my time a little bit more so that I can either teach or share some of my experiences and background to help other people meet their goals.
Two things happen with people that take college serious. They either, and this is my biased opinion, they either become professors,
Mm-hmm.
or they become some kind of coach somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think, at some point,
Sure.
so you built this career. It's not just theory. It's not just talk.
No,
You
I
built
mean
a
the
career.
numbers are the numbers.
You-
I mean that's there. That's,
You didn't become a professor, but
No.
you were one building this career, whether you realize it or not. You're
Well,
a teacher. You're a mentor. You're an advisor.
Hopefully, people get some benefits from some of that experience and wisdom from all the things that I've learned over the years for any newer people, or at least I can steer them in the right direction for something and help them. That's always positive.
How do people contact you? Maybe they're in real estate and they're thinking, wow, if I had the ability to learn through osmosis, like how do they contact the Mercer Group?
Well,
Or do you interview new agents? Are you?
we're on a search for talent.
Okay.
To expand our organization, to expand the market center here in Westchester. So I always am looking for talent that we can help and that they can help us. And so that's an ongoing process. And I always believe in top grading. And so, and then there's another story that goes, your net worth is that of your 5 closest friends and people you hang out with.
Yep.
And it's not all about the money, but I like hanging out with, as successful people as I can because it's inspiring. And how do they contact us? Through Gary SR at GaryMercerGroup.com, our office number, my cell phone 40.
And now you're on LinkedIn and social media.
Well, and to your point,
Yeah.
how you contacted me through LinkedIn. So I mean, we're out there.
I love LinkedIn now.
I do too.
Use it
I
all
think
the time.
it's great. And in fact, I hired a young man that wanted to get into the business, was successful in his career, and he saw a posting we had on LinkedIn, came through there. We interviewed him, and he's on the team now, and just
That's awesome.
at the beginning of his real estate journey. Yep.
Well, I'll tell you, I meet a lot of agents in general, and ones in this area, they definitely need to meet you. I mean, in general, individuals that are curious, that are observant, that invest time. I mean, I wouldn't be where I'm at in my life as happy as I am fulfilled if I did not invest so much time learning.
Well,
So
yeah,
it's really
that's
nice
great
talking to another person.
that
does that.
What you're doing. Well, it's fun and it's great.
That's what life is
Well,
about.
you get out of your box that way too.
Yeah.
I mean, I try to read something every day, at least at some point of the day for some time, and it's just constantly looking to put one good thought in your mind as much as you can, and that translates to everything.
My final question to you is, if you met yourself 30 years ago, knowing what you know today, what would you tell yourself?
Well, 30 years ago, if I met myself, I probably wouldn't know that person.
Interesting.
Because it would be it would just be a growth pattern and an evolution of learning, exposure, mentors, growing. And so, and I think that comes with a certain business and professional maturity too.
Mhm.
So it would be, I would have been different, yeah.
What would you tell yourself if you met yourself?
What I would tell myself is never, ever, ever quit. Never, ever, ever give up, no matter what's thrown in front of you. Just keep at it, keep at it, keep at it, because success is just a flip of the page.
Love it.
You know.
It's awesome.
Thank you.
Yes.
So glad
this
I
is
got
awesome.
to meet you.
Yeah, and we're perfect time. We just lost the mic. We got excited.